So traveling around the block. So once again, we could see this as a block format from a pitch perspective. Movement within a scale is like walking around the city block. So if I have the 7 collection of notes, if I go from note number 2 and I then go to like note 4, I'm going around the block, which I have 2 forms of measurement, continent by continent, which is equivalent to note by note within the 7-note collection, which is measured incorrectly into the current system, making that the 1, 1, 2, 3. It should be 1, 2. Or by notes, which would be equivalent to continent and ocean, 1, 2, 3, or we can go counterclockwise. So you can go clockwise forward or counterclockwise backward, and notice the current scale degree system has a problem going backwards. We'll have to address that because backwards is a thing. So how can we use the current measuring system, which is messed up from scale degrees, because it doesn't really go backwards that easy. We'll talk about that. But you can see, theoretically, it should be easy. You should just go forwards or backwards. And all you need is your starting modal node and the distance in steps. So this approach allows direct measurement of interval distance without renaming notes or keys. So once we know what key we're in, then from a pitch perspective, as we go through the notes, the 7 notes, we're just going around in a circle. That's why the Nashville number system has permanent numbers. They're trying to say, why am I renaming the system relative to scale degrees as I play in different modes when they're all the same locations? And usually you're often going one way around the block, right? We're also going kind of one way like a track. But in theory, of course, we can go one way and the other way as we play our fretboard. All right, what about octaves, you might say? Notice that the reality is that there's actually a 3D dimension to our block analogy. So we can think about the note number line as we do with numbers, going infinitely up and infinitely down, but they also repeat. So the pitches repeat as we go up and down, or the notes repeat, but they're going to be in a higher octave. So it would actually be something like this. It's a spiral. So you can see this is not a perfect picture because it was made by AI, but you can see there's a form of repetition that's the same, but there's also distance. How can we work that into our traveling around the block, or traveling around the track, or traveling around our oceans and continents, but they only go around in a circle? We can add a time dimension. So once again, if I go from this 2 to this 4, that would be 1, 2 of our 7 collection of notes up, or 1, 2, 3 of our 12 notes or total notes, including continents and oceans. But what if I go around the block? I go if I do all of them, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, if I counted that right. So now it would be 15, and that's great. But if I was to ask someone directions, the local distance would still be 1, 2, 3 if I add oceans and continents. So I would say it's 3 plus an octave, which we can think it would be the time it takes to go another lap around. And that would be like saying, well, we're still in Australia, but it's not the same because it's 12. It's the time it took you to travel another 12 steps around. That would be like saying the ocean is not always the same, or the river is not the same when you step in it twice, because it's different, because time is a factor. That's how you can take this analogy and see the local distance, and also add the concept of octaves as you go up an octave and get this 3D spiral. So moving an octave up or down is like going up a level in time. It's the same location, but a new layer. So that would be like going an octave up. You're still on the same, what would this be? The 4th, this would still be the 4 location, but now it's an octave up. This adds a vertical 3D element to our map. Think of it like returning to the same bend in a river, but at a different moment in time. Musically, it's an echo, not a repetition. So that's deep, right? Not just deep because it's an ocean here. It's deep because it's deep, man. We're going in the river, but the river's like not the same. So why this works better than the traditional system. So once again, here's our grid from space. This is what most people are learning. We're memorizing the fretboard, and we're memorizing all the points on the fretboard, and we're trying to use our intervals to look at all the distances between all 12 notes on the fretboard, which is great, but it doesn't give us any context. Even if we learned all that, we would still have to learn the collections of notes that are in context of all this 12 different collections of notes. It's not the optimal way to learn it, and it's a frustrating way to learn it. It doesn't help you to build songs as easily or chords or scales or anything. So and that's what most people are doing. That's going to be very discouraging. Again, that would be like playing Zelda, and every time you go back to the Zelda game, all of the continents look like they're in a different location because you're looking at a grid from space and the Zelda world keeps spinning around, and you want to have a grid that's on the Zelda world. So traditional note-based navigation is like floating a map grid in space and letting the world spin beneath it. So it's hard to find the location. This causes learners to constantly rename positions based on scale degrees or shifting tones. Now, one of the problems with this is that the scale degree system, because of that off by one measuring problem we touched in on, has all these kinds of terms which are not optimal. They lead us to thinking in things in improper ways. They force us to think like we're in different scale degrees and so on. Same with the chord naming conventions. There are better ways to name things in order to see everything in context of the continents, which is always what we're doing in Western music. We always have a collection of 7 notes. I mean, pretty much all the time. So our approach locks the grid to the world, the mode, giving you consistent intuitive reference points. Okay, practical benefits of the analogy. Anchors understanding. Modes are landmarks, making navigation easier. So you want to see basically the locations on the map. That's going to make things easier to navigate. You don't have to use the Greek names. You can call them a Nashville number system. Just realize the paradigm shift. The Nashville number system, permanent modal system, permanent numbers, is more sophisticated. That's the more musically inclined approach, the more contextual approach, the most contextually accurate way to see things. So reveals structure. Rotation shows how key changes affect position without changing relationships. So when we change keys, we can now see the whole map is the same, particularly on the guitar. It's similar on a piano, but there's different fingering because the piano has different uneven keys in terms of the length and size of them. But the same thing applies to the piano as well. So encourages modal thinking. No need to rename one each time you shift your center. We'll talk about why that happens. It's because of the naming convention that happened because they measured things incorrectly with the scale degrees, which messes us up a lot of ways, right? It's like having the foundation of your naming convention named by some, someone that really that didn't really think it out, right? So now we have a language system that's built on a foundation that's not quite right, which leads us, when we start building on a foundation, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you build on it, it leads you to thinking things that aren't actually correct. So we have to understand that so we can think about things the most optimal way. And one of the problems is with the scale degrees is it forces us to change the locations on the map from a Nashville number system, a permanent modal number system, or the Greek names, to a different name, having a different, and there's no point in doing that. That's causing all kind of problems. Same with the chord-based system, the naming system. So simplified intervals, movement and distance plus direction, not scale naming. So all we have to do is visualize it as a track. So we don't need to say that we're going from scale to scale. I'm going scale to scale. This is the one, that's the one. No, we just need to name the point and then say how far we're going in distance, measured either in note by note from the collection of 7 notes that's always in order, or by the 12 note, which would be equivalent to the continents and oceans. Conclusion: from notes to navigation, this analogy transforms the fretboard into a navigal landscape. So if you were to approach the fretboard this way, it's like playing a video game in that it's hard, but you see it contextually, it's gamified, you see why you're doing it, and it gives you, and you can have achievement goals like playing songs and playing scales a lot more quickly than if you try to learn all of the notes on the fretboards and all of the intervals between all of the notes on the fretboard without context. If you do learn all the notes, then what you're going to learn to do is play songs that are in a particular key. Like on the piano, you learn all of the notes in the key of C, and you can play a bunch of songs in the key of C, but possibly not see how to move them to other keys. On the guitar, it's even easier because everything is movable. So what you want to do is name the song not by the notes, but by the nodes, by the Nashville number system. Then you can play the song in any key. You should be able to say the entire song by the Nashville number system, by the nodes. And we'll talk about how to do that. But just think about it. Say everything that you're seeing in notes, convert it to nodes, and you'll see what I mean. If you say a song is in nodes, you can shift it easily to the 12 keys. If you say it in notes, you can't easily shift it to the 12 keys. I mean, everything, particularly on the guitar, should be movable. It's like an Excel spreadsheet. You should copy and paste it. And if it's something that's not presented that way, it's not presented optimally. So stop renaming the earth every time you change your position. Start exploring the map that moves with you. So note names are like a GPS coordinates that don't tell you what kind of land you're on. So they're just telling you kind of where it is, but it's not telling you, what position, where you are in within the context of your song. So modes are continents. If you want to play music, you don't just know where you are. You want to know what's there, meaning I want to be looking at latitude and longitude when my fingers are actually on the continents that I have decided to be playing in, and then name the locations relative to the position I'm playing in, not relative to a grid that's hovering in space.